We're live.
Hey, everybody.
If you're catching this, that means you're either watching the video later after it gets uploaded, or you're very quick on the draw. So while we're testing this, if you're hopping on watching us, let us know how it looks and sounds. We're testing out some new streaming gear. Going to be looking at Shattered Grid, the first expansion for the Power Rangers Heroes of the Grid board game. I wanted to say Shattered Grid board game, which is just incorrect.
Yeah, it's got... Essentially what has happened was Renegade Studios, awesome. They sent us a copy of Shattered Grid, and we're about to send it back to them because I think they had used it at a convention, and then
they were using it.
They sent it our way.
Yep, I think before a convention. So they used it, and then they went to Origins, and then they sent it to us so that we could make a gameplay video, which we've shot and recorded and edited. It's in the process of being post-production at this point. But we just today put up the first gameplay, which is the core game. Super cool.
But no, we thought since we had the Shattered Grid box, we may as well do a little live stream with it before we send it back. I know there's been a lot of people in the Power Rangers Facebook group that we're definitely paying attention to, and they really want to see some of the stuff in this box, I'm sure. So we're going to do that. Make sure that that's on public, would you? Scroll down on basic info. Yeah, that'll do it. And then maybe just reload that page. Welcome, everybody who is watching.
Hopping on.
From
so we went live with it being private, which means there won't be a notice on YouTube, which is fine.
We could just turn it off and back on.
All right, let's do it. We're going to cancel this one.
BRB, going to moon.
I think we're going to. It's going to take a second.
Boom, but then
so if you're watching, thanks for watching. It's been fun.
Right back.
Enable all. We are officially live. If you're watching this, that means you were either watching this video back later or you were previously watching and you're just very quick on the draw. So thank you for joining us. We're going to be taking a look here at the Shattered Grid expansion for Power Rangers Heroes of the Grid. Renegade was awesome enough to send this to us while they were away at Origins, and that let us shoot a gameplay video that's currently being produced. As we were packing this up to send it back to them, we got some new streaming gear in, and we were basically looking for any reason possible to talk about this experience in this game. We just today uploaded our gameplay/tutorial video with the core game, and we have the Shattered Grid video where we play through with the expansion coming in the very near future. But I will say, we played some games before. It was like just testing the waters, right? They sent us actually very kindly a core game. We tried out the game, and it was fun.
It was just the two of us.
It was just two of us. It's a two-player game, variant rules. And then we played it with 3 people, and it just opened up.
The way it was meant to be played, it seems like.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like your Rangers are normally 4 or 5 people, and so I think for me, I would love to try out having it a 4 and 5 player game, but I know that the 3-player game to me was significantly better than just more enjoyable.
Most of those cooperative games are like that. Even for me with Arkham, once you get to the 3, that's a really special place, because then you start to get that third player that can kind of smooth out the bumps with whatever it is that they're doing. So, most games you need, if you have 2 people, one person has to really be engaged in usually the fighting, one person maybe is the secondary objective, in Arkham the clue gathering, or like in Power Rangers maybe it's killing multiple enemies versus single target damage, or maybe you have your tank and your attacker. But at least in 2-player they fixed that a little bit in that you control 2 Rangers.
Yep.
So it's not so much a failing in Power Rangers of you not having the kind of class diversity that you want, but it's more of the decision making is actually a little easier.
Well, like in 2-player, we combine 2 decks, and you have more cards in your hand, and you have more cards in your deck, so there's a little less threat, because you essentially, your Ranger gets defeated/dies when you run out of cards in your deck in a battle. And so with each of these decks is only 10 cards. And we'll be looking at all the Rangers here from the Shattered Grid expansion. A lot of people had questions about that. But once your deck is gone, you're defeated. But if you have 2, you have 2 decks. And so like...
It takes a lot.
It just is a lot more difficult. So I enjoy the 3-player game a lot more.
Can you pop over to Facebook and...
see if we're working? Yeah, hey, if you're watching or listening, let us know how it looks and sounds. That'll also confirm that we're live everywhere and that everything is sounding great.
That will be helpful.
Let me...
And we won't move until it happens.
Verify it.
See if we make sure we've got the old live stream up on Facebook and everywhere.
Yeah, it says we're live.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we are live.
We're there.
Here it is.
Let's share that. Is that a little dark? Dark to you?
It's a little.
Let me turn this up.
It is a little dark. So if you missed earlier, we're testing out some live stream gear. That does definitely look a little dark.
All right, we'll brighten her up. Nothing. A couple of clicks ISO can't fix.
See, you can still see yourself on the camera, so it's that far behind.
Yeah, it is.
We'll get there eventually.
Okay, I'm back.
And if you're watching or listening and you have any questions...
Can you share it into the group?
Yeah.
Let's just do that right now.
All right, here we are. Keep going. Andrew Chan. Oh, I remember seeing this. The Facebook chat isn't coming through correctly.
That's right.
So people are saying it looks and sounds good on
All
Facebook.
right, good.
So
thanks, Andrew and Charles and Bill. Appreciate that.
Share this really quick.
We're going to share this directly in the Power Rangers group, and then we'll get started. And what we're doing is we're going to look down. Shattered Grid introduces 7 new Rangers. Renegade Studios did a kind of look at some of the components in the box and a little bit of the enemies. What we're going to do is, since we played quite a few games, we're going to look at each of these Rangers, look at their decks and their abilities, and kind of get a feel for how they're going to play. And hopefully that'll be helpful for anybody who gets the Shattered Grid expansion can look at this video and kind of get an idea of how these Rangers are ultimately going to play out. And that's really helpful. It's kind of like in a fighting game, right? You want to kind of choose the character that does what you like to do. So in this case, like blue is probably a little tankier, black is going to be a little bit more about that spread out damage, and red's going to be giving bonuses to the team. So you kind of get an idea of what exactly needs to happen if you pick that color. So Zach, I think we're good. I hear chat saying everything's good.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the chat because I want to be able to see.
Stream looks good on Facebook and YouTube.
So
what do you guys think? This is some new gear, and we got to decide if we want to keep it or not.
And we have in like the next week or two.
I feel like it's streaming a lot better than we have in the past. We need somebody like Justin to come on here and tell us. Matthias has been here for a long time. He'll probably know.
Saying it looks good. So that said, one thing I noticed, we posted that video earlier. Our first video is on YouTube where we play through the core game, and I think we took it for granted that like we know the rules and we've played the game.
Right.
So there's just a lot of like basic stuff coming out where people are like, oh, I didn't know there was a 2 and 3 player variant. So if you have any questions about the game as we're going and about how things work, we're happy to answer them, knowing that a lot of people watching haven't played. But we're really excited about it. So feel free to ask, and we're happy to let you know what's up.
Well, Zach, you want to get started here?
Who do you want to start with?
Yeah, so let's just start with let's start with HyperForce Blue Eddie Banks. So
you played him in our Shattered Grid video.
That's right. So the way that this works is whenever a Power Rangers expansion hits, essentially you're getting usually new monsters, new Power Rangers. This is like the big Shattered Grid is like the big expansion.
Yeah, we have
it looks like this.
There's a number of expansions coming out on release with the core game. So it's like there's the monster pack, which comes with a couple monsters and bosses. There's the villain pack. There's the Shattered Grid expansion. There's the Megazord, the Cyclopsis. So there's different types of releases, but this is
it's like the deluxe expansion of the game.
Yeah, it's the primary expansion.
Gives you everything.
And there's a lot of stuff in here.
So we get the new Rangers, and each of these is going to play a little bit differently than your Mighty Morphin versions. There's some various. There's the HyperForce. There's the Dino. What are the dinos called?
The Dinosaurs?
Somewhere. Is Dino
That's the original.
or other?
There's HyperForce. There's also
Samurai is what I was thinking of.
There's
Super
the Time Force. So you actually end up with 7 new Rangers in this expansion. You have one of each color from the HyperForce, and then you actually get a red from the Super Samurai Red and the HyperForce Pink.
Yeah.
Which are from 2 different.
And you get Time Force Pink too.
Timelines.
This mythos goes deep.
That's right. So it's HyperForce Blue, HyperForce Black. It's all the HyperForce, and then you get Time Force Pink with Super Samurai Red.
Just like bonuses.
Because like the whole Shattered Grid thing is like the timeline gets broken by Tommy, the Green Ranger, and it's as though he never became the White Ranger and was the good guy. Spoiler if you haven't seen that.
See, I don't even know a lot about that.
So he is actually the boss of the box.
Oh.
And then he's actually converted the Pink Ranger, which is the Ranger Slayer, and that's one of the monsters. And then you get the old dragon as the other monster.
Let's pop Eddie in here. Here you go, everybody. There's Eddie Banks.
Yeah, so what does Eddie do?
So Eddie Banks is HyperForce Blue, has the Technician type. So as far as I can tell, all of the blue variants are
smart,
doing the Technician kind of thing. So his is once per battle, a Ranger of your choice may place up to 3 cards from their hand on the bottom of their deck, then draw an equal number of cards. And I have to tell you that these kinds of abilities in this game are incredibly good. Incredibly good. So you're able to essentially drop cards into the deck and then draw new ones from the hand. You have played enough, the 2 of us have played enough to know that finding the right cards in your hand is really important. Being able to do that once per battle is crazy good. There's a lot of Rangers. Remember, we only get 10 cards, so there's a couple of cards that are like essential to some of the strategies that you're trying to do. Eddie being able to, essentially even that out for all of the Rangers, fantastic. I was very happy with how that played out.
That's actually an incredible ability, and you know, there's a lot of cards that don't do attacks, and you can only attack when you play the cards. So I have some funny comments in a second, by the way.
Okay.
So you can only attack when you play the cards. So in our game that we played on camera, actually, that ability let me set up a pretty wild combo, which you'll see. I don't want to spoil that.
Right on.
Justin A says I may be a little loud, which is the first time ever.
You're never loud.
He also says that it looks like I might need a haircut.
Oh man,
Is true.
He knows that you're trying to grow it out for Kylo Ren, right?
Halloween. I think he knows that.
So let's look at
this card, by the way. It looks great.
Yeah.
Like just it's very clear.
Yeah, we're there.
So what about his deck?
Let me bring you some cards that I think are really important. Coiling Viper is kind of the default blue card as far as I can tell.
Okay.
So this is the kind of card that it's 2 dice. It's just a straight up Blue Ranger attack.
And 0 energy on the top.
0 energy, and it goes back to the top of your deck after you play it. So this is the kind of thing where, technically, if you're just, wanting to do 1 to 2 damage, you throw this out there, you don't lose any life technically. In fact, you technically gain life by playing it because it goes back to your deck.
Oh, this is the one that goes on top of your deck.
Yeah, and then you know that you have 2 shields, so in the case of taking 1 damage, you can necessarily take that, it goes to the bottom of your deck, and you've lost nothing. So I think Blue Ranger is really going to be playing like that a lot of the time. Just being very smart about when you take damage, how you take damage, and utilizing a couple of lower energy and lower attack value attacks to essentially kind of streamline the defensive strategy and not lose a lot.
Sure. I mean, I think that's use this to great effect in our game, which is that ability is 0 cost, you get to roll some dice, and then you know it's on top of your deck, which is the most important part.
Now let me show you where this Blue Ranger, in terms of Eddie Banks, is a little bit different. So the first thing I want to look at is every Ranger has one of these Blade Blasters, and we won't show them for all the Rangers because they're all, as far as I can tell, the exact same.
Which is basically pay X, do X damage, divide how you want.
Yes.
X being the pay and energy.
So pay and energy, do a damage, pay 2 energy, do 2 damage, that kind of a thing. So that's the Blade Blaster. I think, as far as I can tell, every Ranger has this, right? So we won't worry about it, but everybody's got the Blade Blaster. And then every Ranger also has as far as I can tell, an expensive card that does something that kind of signifies their role or kind of what they're going to be best at. So in the case of Eddie, first of all, it's a Trident, which gets me super excited, gets me nuts.
Yeah, this is like their finishing move attack kind of thing, right? Like their shining moment where they really blow something up.
It's their big thing. So this is OCEANUS Trident. It's got all the right words in there. It's a 3 dice attack. After you resolve it, you choose up to 3 cards from Ranger discard piles and shuffle them back into their respective decks. So again, Eddie is bringing a lot of utility to the game. So it's a 3 dice attack. It's probably one of the lowest, if not the lowest, of the big significant attacks. But everyone around the table, there's a combination of 3 cards going back from discard pile into deck, and that is tremendously important.
Yeah.
You got to remember, when you recover, you get 6 shields back into your deck. So anything that just says choose a card, you're going to get max value out of that. You're going to be able to put those 3 shields back in your deck. And for us, like in our games, this kind of ability was tremendously important.
Sure.
It lets you get your big stuff back in your deck and then play it out. And even coupled with his ability the next turn, you could drop cards to redraw. Looks really, really good.
Yeah, and even you just have a Ranger starting to get low on cards, put 3 cards back into their deck. That's a lot of extra life, right? You only have 10 cards in your deck, so putting 3 back in, and your deck functions as your life. Tremendously valuable.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Card. And it's really, I mean, you start seeing it, right? Blue is definitely, he can do damage, he can do things.
It's just these little hits, but you don't really lose anything. It's kind of free damage.
And then he's also just facilitating everyone else, right? Like he made one of my attacks in that video just bonkers town.
Check this out. This is where Eddie's different from the Mighty Morphin version, which is Billy. I remember that because I was saying Billy a lot in the video.
Didn't you?
Yeah, I love Blue. I love Blue, I love water. Come on, it makes too much sense. So this is a kind of thing that's introduced in, what is this called, Shattered Grid?
Yep.
The Blue Ranger here is actually introducing a new mechanic where you're attaching things to enemies.
That's right, we did that for the first time.
Which I found to be the kind of card that, and this happens in card games, especially in card games, there are cards that look awesome, but you can't ever figure out the right tempo to play them.
Yeah.
But when I actually was able to play these cards, I got a huge benefit.
That one saved our saved our team.
It has a really good moment. So you have to hold it. It feels very, you know, very Blue Ranger. You've got to wait until the perfect time, and then here you come to save the day kind of thing. So Serpent Strike, you gain an energy. Anything that costs 0 and gains an energy is great. It also has 3 shields, so that's a good deal.
A lot of value.
You attach it to an enemy card, and after that enemy card resolves, deal 2 damage to that enemy. So this is a very easy way. This is the one that saved our bacon. It's another attacher.
Got it.
It's a very easy way, especially to get rid of cards that don't really do anything, like that shield that guards stuff. This makes it to where you don't really have to attack it, and you can just let it resolve, do nothing, and then it does 2 damage to it.
Which is particularly good. A lot of those passive cards have 2 or 3 health. So if it's resolving and not doing anything anyway, but you get to defeat it as well, you don't have to waste an attack on getting
You're not wasting an attack. So that's a really good little tech piece.
Now, I thought you were talking about
here's the Python grab.
Card.
It's just
really
like he's obviously,
There's 2 of those in the deck? That's really good.
So the thing is, I haven't, you know, I followed Power Rangers pretty extensively when I was a child, and I wouldn't have called it followed. I would say I energetically watched it.
Yeah.
But there's a lot that has happened since the Mighty Morphin days, as you might expect. And so I'm guessing that Eddie is like a judo-style, you know, submission fighter, and that's why we see all of these different holds like this. Python Grab being one of them. This is a 1 energy attack. You attach it to 1 enemy card. You reduce all damage dealt with that enemy by 2, and it loses the guard keyword for the rest of the battle.
That was the card that saved us.
Yes, it can have a tremendous impact on the game, and it's best on some of the enemies that we saw that had cards that were like, do 2 damage, do 3 damage, do 4 damage. And each of those instances being reduced by 2 is excellent. As far as removing the guard, I think there's going to be very specific situations for that. But I think we found ourselves in these situations where it's like, well, I could also just try to kill that guard thing rather than removing guard and then doing something to its neighbor.
Yeah.
So the timing on this is going to be really important. If you like timing, if you like kind of having the perfect thing in your hand at the right moment, I think Eddie Banks is going to be a lot of fun to play.
Well, that was particularly good against, essentially we got to a boss, and they have higher health cards that you aren't necessarily going to be able to deal with quickly enough. And in that case, right, it had multiple damage effects. Mm-hmm. So it was like 3 different instances.
It's perfectly built for the boss in this box, 100%, right? Yeah. So it makes a lot of sense. And then finally, 2 copies of OCEANUS Blades. This is a pretty straightforward attack. It's one of those that costs 0 energy, so Blue Ranger killing it on that front. It's an attack for 2 dice, and it says after you resolve this attack, you and another Ranger may each draw a card. So again, another tech piece, another great way to smooth out the way that things go in your game, and I like it very much. And then finally, we have the Serpent Hyperzord, and this one may be kind of hard to fit. Let's see if we can get it in there.
This is something I didn't really appreciate fully up front, which is that essentially the each Ranger comes with a unique Zord, and that makes a certain amount of sense. But
this one's a snake.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense.
It's great, right? It's that coiling, it's the submission, it's that whole thing.
So whatever Ranger you choose to bring, you actually get to bring that Zord with you, and then that can randomly come out throughout a game.
So this one is you're exhausting the card during a battle to flip up to 2 foot soldier cards face down as though defeated, but you don't remove them. So basically, they won't resolve their abilities. They'll still turn and waste time, but they won't actually get a chance to do anything.
That's pretty good.
That can be really, really good.
Picturing you have even just turning one of the guards upside down. A lot of the situations are really bad for you.
Yep, Eddie's just leveling the board out.
You know, Eddie reminds me of, if you're familiar with basketball, he's like the Scottie Pippen of the
team.
Basketball, the National Basketball Association. He reminds me of like Scottie Pippen, right?
Yeah.
Which is like. That's
exactly who I played in NBA Jam, too. I'll have you know.
So it's in NBA talk, it's a role player, right? Which is like, he has this thing he does, right? And he's really helping everyone else. So everyone else's stats look way better than his.
Yeah.
But you take him off of the team, and it suddenly is a totally different ballgame.
It's just better.
Yeah, if that is if you're the facilitator, I think that's a really, really good character for you.
Let's go move on to VESPER VASQUEZ.
This is Bryce played this one in the video, right?
Yes, that is correct. And
the outfit, like red line going down the middle.
She's got the Cry Havoc thing. So this is the Black Ranger in Shattered Grid, HyperForce version. You want to put the model up here?
They got the shield showing. You may like me to turn it over so they can see it. There it is. It's a shield.
How about that
turns into an axe. I didn't know that. That's
Can't
cool.
really see that so well. How about this? Look at that. Yeah. That's good. Or even right here. Great model. I mean, it's good. And you don't have to paint them, but you can. That's the good thing about it.
That is, someone was realizing that earlier in response to our video, which is they didn't realize that the Rangers came in the color of plastic that the Rangers are going to be. Because in the initial production copies, they were all the same color.
Oh, great! Yeah,
that is a little touch that Renegade did. That's just amazing.
It's really relevant
because you don't have to paint. You can start playing. I didn't feel any less thematic not having them painted, but of course painting them will be awesome as well.
Yeah, it'll be good. So we got Vesper VASQUEZ. Cry Havoc is the ability if there are 3 or more enemy figures in your location, reduce the energy cost of all of your cards by 1. This is straight across the board. Excellent.
We made so much use out of that.
You got to work that.
It's so good. It's very common for there to be 3 or more enemies. All your energy cost being -1 is just ludicrous. So very efficient character, I'll say that much.
Very efficient. And you have to, this is the kind of the fun of the game, you have to maximize the conditions that are going to create that for you. Like, how are you going to keep 3 enemies here and still win the game? Like, that's something that we had to do a lot. So let's start with, we'll do the same thing. So she's got a Blade Blaster, as you might expect. And then let's start with the big card. I guess that's a good way to do it. And remember, at -1 energy, this is going to be a really good deal. So you've got Koius Axe, I believe is how you would say that. It's a 3 energy attack. It brings 4 dice. And then after you resolve the attack, deal 1 damage to each enemy card that has already resolved. So every enemy card that has already resolved, you deal 1 damage to it. Now, I'm already thinking.
That's pretty good.
Think about old Eddie Banks. You can turn 2 foot soldiers over. You can also attach these submission holds to them so that they don't do a lot of damage and they activate and don't do much. And then you bring in the axe and you do 1 to everything that has activated. A lot of really cool synergy, and a lot of this game is just finding ways to maximize all of our different cards to work together in the best way possible. As you might expect, that's very Power Rangers. And so this is a great kind of coup de grace attack. It's a really good way to open up a lot of enemies to good odds, because I think what we've found is most of the enemies are 3 and 4 health, and most of the attacks are 2 to 3 dice.
And you average about 1 damage per die.
Yeah, so you're looking at 2 to 3 damage per attack. 0.
Yeah.
So, you know, Eddie has a really good, not Eddie, Vesper has a really good way of kind of keeping things level across the board so that things die very easily. That
also means just macro level for this character that he's gonna or she's gonna find herself in spots with a lot of enemies. So you're gonna move to those big spots, and I feel like there are certain Rangers that want to be like against 1 or 2 models, and then there's characters like him where his cards naturally start making him want to show up to a party.
Right. That is the case. Let's look at the shield, shall we? 2 of those. So her shield is awesome. Koi's shield is incredible. I think we use this to great effect in the game. It's obviously it's a 3 shield card, so it's naturally shieldy, but also has this reaction. Play it when any ranger suffers damage to reduce it by 2, and then you put it on the top of your deck instead of discarding it. So it's the reverse of what we're looking at with the Blue Ranger.
The Blue Ranger, which is, I mean, that's incredible, right? So you get a block 2 damage, and then if, let's say you're taking 4, reduce it by 2, put this on top of your deck, take 2. So then you flip over and you're canceling 3 with these shields, and because there's more shields than damage, it goes to the bottom of your deck instead. It's
a beautiful little thing.
So like you take 4 damage that just does nothing. Yeah. Essentially is what that means. And if there are 3 enemies, it's -1 energy.
It's so good. It's so good.
It's not just attacks, right?
It's everything. Every card.
Yeah, every card. So we did that a few times. Where it's like 0 energy, reduce 2, take 2, put it on the bottom of my deck, and then you would trigger the Blue Ranger where it's like draw 3, it's like just all this.
It felt like we were wrecking it whenever that was going on. Let's look at Cerebrus Fang, another great ability of hers. 3 dice on the attack, 1 energy, and you see these 2 1 energy attacks that are going to be reduced to 0 if you have 3 or more enemies per the ability. 3 dice attack, and it has a star, which is always exciting. If it's revealed for defense, add it to your hand instead of discarding or placing it on the bottom of your deck. So it still gets those 2 shields on the block, and then it goes to your hand instead of on the bottom or on the discard pile.
Very good value.
Just incredibly good. And then it comes back for a 3 dice attack, potentially for free energy.
Yeah.
So a really good cycle. Another little defensive ranger showing up here in the Black Ranger. And I like the difference between the HyperForce version, which is a little bit more defensive, obviously has a shield and does that thing.
But still can get some damage going, right?
Versus the Morphin, which is out of the hip-hop keto version, which is a ton of doing things to adjacent targets. So these 2 Black Rangers actually play very differently.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Hades' technique. You get 2 of those as well. It's a maneuver. You gain an energy for each enemy card already defeated in this battle. So we've seen a couple of cards from Vesper that are talking about essentially a lot of different things in the battle, and then we get benefits by having a lot of different things in the battle.
Yeah.
So it makes sense.
And he's only going to do so much energy, or so much damage, so I feel like he almost naturally needs to go where there are a lot of enemies, but also needs to be there with other rangers.
Correct.
And not all rangers work that way.
Not all rangers work that way, Zach. I'm going to go refresh one of our cameras.
Okay, cool.
And I'm going to let you talk to the folks.
Continue on.
If anybody has questions about Shattered Grid, this would be a really good time to ask.
There it goes. I was like, what happened? Refreshing the camera. If you have questions about Shattered Grid or Power Rangers, Heroes of the Grid in general, let me know. Someone asked earlier in the comments how big the dice are, so I actually went and measured it. I joked and said I'll bring a ruler. But the approximate measurement is 3/4 of an inch. Which I did the conversion on to millimeters earlier, and I don't have those with me. But that's about the height and width of the die. So if you're wanting to know exactly the size of those, that is the answer.
Nice. Thank you. That's very helpful.
Yeah, of course. Do we have the rules reference? Someone's asking questions about the various
Yeah, the little book.
quantity of players. Not from this expansion, but from the core game.
Absolutely.
We can grab that. Yeah, Eduardo, the camera did go black. Steven's replacing a battery in one of those really quick before we keep going.
Yeah. That's part of the. If this works, basically what we're looking at is getting the full kit.
Oh man, we had the blurry vision going because you pointed it up to put the battery in.
Oh, nice.
I was like, what is happening here?
All right, you want the book? I got the book for you.
Yeah, the book. I'm looking at.
Really? I mean,
Sorry for the dance.
all we have is this thing. That's the only sheet I think that comes in it.
No, from the core game.
Oh, the core game. Yeah.
Sorry for the miscommunication. Hey, Japan himself. Thank you very much for the kind words. Glad you're enjoying the content.
We on?
Saren, I don't know, honestly. So as a kid, I watched Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and then that was kind of the only thing I watched. By the time the other things were coming out, I kind of moved on to Pokemon and other Star Wars even at that point. So I'm not super familiar with all the other Rangers, and I'm actually it's been pretty fun for me because we've seen some of the HyperForce and Time Force, the Samurais coming in, and so it's been fun for me to kind of explore the other types of Rangers and the other characters through the game. So like I was playing with Lauren Shiva from the Super Samurai Red in the game. And you know, from the art and from the cards and what she's doing, I kind of start getting a feel, and even her Bull Zord, a feel for who she is and how she operates. And then that made me want to go, and I went online to kind of figure out who's this character and what's their role. So I don't know which ones I would add, but I will say I really dig the Samurai. I really loved, in the movie, the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers switched to their like ninja type gear. I liked that a lot as a kid, but then even seeing the Samurai here with Shiba, I was a big fan of. So I'll answer with that. Probably the Samurai Ninja stuff is what I'm most excited about.
Kind of the fun part is you get to discover it as you go. I don't think we have the rulebook handy, so
That's crazy.
we're just gonna.
Right.
What's the question?
People are just asking about what the rules on the various variants were, so we'll just post those somewhere.
Well, we know 'em. We played that assault mode.
We know they're like 2-player, 3-player, 4-player, 5-player.
Oh, right.
So
It's
I don't know those offhand. It just changes the activations and the extra energy in the middle for every extra life you get, and the number of rangers that you have. But we can basically make a blog or post something.
Why don't we blog it? Yeah, we'll blog it later. Okay, we're back on Hades Technique. Let's finish up Vesper here. Hades Technique we looked at, which is essentially the Black Rangers. Does it strike you as the Black Rangers are really mostly about lots of things? Like they're kind of your crowd control, deal damage, or deal with a lot of different enemies all at once?
Zach from the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers he was very much a hit something, do damage to its neighbors, or AoE, or do splash damage, and this is even like based on how many enemies there are.
Sure.
Is one of the core mechanics, but again, approaching it in kind of a very different way.
Let's look at ground and pound on that note. 0 cost attack, 2 dice. If the target of this attack has already resolved, add a die to the attack. So again, it's a lot of things out. Things that have resolved, you're better against. Makes a lot of sense.
He needs time, or she needs time. Zach always makes me want to now.
Right, yeah, we're in Mighty Morphin days.
It needs time for those enemies to activate and still have other enemies to go before it can play these cards to great effect, right? So it just has to have a lot of enemies for it to work.
Well, let's look at the Zord, see if that theory remains true. Cerberus, man, I've said that many times in my life, and I've only now Cerebrus, but it's kind of spelled. Is it always spelled like that? Hyperzord.
I don't know. I can't read it from over here.
Exhaust this card to deal 1 damage each to up to 3 enemy cards. So we imagine the card that does 1 damage to everything that's activated, combined with the Zord that does 3 damage to, or 1 damage to 3 different cards, and you can see how quickly clearing out enemies becomes a thing.
Enemies as well, right? So very quickly you can. That was when we were playing the Mighty Morphin versions. It's like, I forget what ranger I was even playing. Maybe it was the Red Ranger, who has the ability to damage a neighbor as well. And so it's like you're trying to queue up ways to defeat enemies without actually attacking them. So that makes a lot of sense.
All right, so we've got 2 out of the box here: HyperForce Black and HyperForce Blue. Let's go to yellow. This is HyperForce Yellow.
Thomas. Look at that.
Jack Thomas.
Look at that outfit. That's great.
You're steadfast.
Uniform, perhaps.
All right, so Jack Thomas is steadfast and has a great time of it here. Each time you suffer damage before revealing any cards for defense, you may choose 1 card from your hand and place it on top of your deck. That ability is so good that it makes me excited to play. It's essentially, before you take damage, you put 1 from your hand on the top of your deck.
That seems good.
So whatever shield value you want. So if you take 2 damage, you can put your 3 shield down. If you take 1 damage, you put your 2 shield down.
As long as you could kind of combo that out. How many 3 shields are in the deck? 2?
Let's see. 1, 2, 3.
So you could get down to where that's all that's left, and it's every time you're blocking damage, you're revealing a 3.
It's so good.
You put 1 under, do it, etc. That's very powerful, actually.
It's a really good ability. Got the Blade Blaster, of course. So nothing to see there. But let's look at the big one. Here's the Crius Hammer, or Crius Hammer. It's a 3 cost attack. It has 5 dice right off the bat.
My word.
Can you believe that? The next time any ranger suffers damage during this battle, reduce the damage by 2. That's so another great defensive ranger here in yellow.
Hitting hard, right?
5.
Also, have you seen this model?
Look at this model. Let's look at this model,
He's like doing the come here to the enemy with this giant hammer that he's got over his shoulder.
Might be a little out of focus because we're kind of set up to do the.
Card.
Let's do the. Here, look, it's
this guy is cool. I don't know anything about him, but like I want to.
I want to know everything.
I've also heard if
you're
watching or listening and you're aware of this, please tell me what comics are worth actually starting with. Like if you're only gonna do 1, because like I feel like I've heard the show's great, right? Aimed at kids, it's doing its Power Rangers thing, but I've heard the comics are like next level.
Yep.
That's where it really gets.
They just got added to the Comixology thing. I just saw that.
What's Comixology?
Like the whole Heroes or Shattered Grid arc. It's like I think it's the get a subscription and get as many comics as you want kind of thing. I heard an interview on them on a podcast.
Thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Marvel has like Marvel Unlimited where you can just pay a monthly fee and get all the Marvel comics, which at this point is like 10 billion.
All right, let's run through it. We're probably going to have to work through these guys pretty quickly.
Yeah, let's do it.
Because we're working on limited juice here. Crius Cannon. So hammer turns into a cannon. What could be cooler or better than that? 3 die attack. If it defeats the target, deal 1 damage to an enemy card adjacent to the target. So we see some different things starting to show up.
Yellow and black could work together really well.
It looks very nice.
Look at that helmet there with the ram horns.
This is all so cool. Yeah. I just can't even really contain myself. 1 energy ram rush, 3 die attack. Great. I love 1 energy for 3. I feel like that's the best pay for dice card that you're gonna get. Has a star. If it's discarded for defense, that's usually what the star means, maybe always. The next time you perform an attack during this battle, add 1 die to it. So if you reveal the ram rush, it's only a 1 defense, but it means that your next attack's +1. Obviously the ability, you can throw that on top if you need a little extra juice.
Jack is the muscle.
Well, he's kind of,
Well, if you look, he's got a 5, and then he's got the Blade Blaster, he's got 2 3s, he's got 2 2s, and he's got the defensive card that adds to the thing. He's definitely, from what I've seen so far, the hardest hitter in the HyperForce.
And the cool thing too is that everyone has kind of a mixed they all kind of, it's hard to pigeonhole them. They're not built to be like, this is the one task that you do.
Sure.
Like he does little adjacent damage, does a little defense. I like that they've designed it that way. They feel a lot more real and unique rather than like, this is the role that I was designing for. Let's look at this headbutt. 0 cost, attack 2 dice. After you resolve it, if the target had the guard keyword, return this card to your hand instead of discarding it. That's fantastic.
That is the best.
So if you headbutt a guard, you get the headbutt right back.
That's amazing.
2 damage to the guard and you get it back. Or 2 dice to the guard.
Zero energy.
Zero
energy attached
this is
to
so
where the
good.
magic happens.
I love this.
He's awesome.
And
I
then
also love this model.
Protect and serve. Reaction. When another ranger would discard a card for defense, play it to gain 1 energy and allow that ranger to place the card on the bottom of their deck instead of discarding it. So even if it would, we're going to the discard pile or you need to stack it up to get more defense, goes right to the bottom. So it basically makes it.
You play the card getting discarded.
You play this card to gain an energy and allow that ranger to place the card on the bottom of their deck instead of discarding it. So they discard that card for defense, and then it goes to the bottom instead of the discard pile or wherever else.
Energy gets gained.
That's correct, and it can only be another ranger. So that means that you gotta help your friends.
That's right.
And that's usually a good place to be.
That's how.
Let's look at Ram Hyperzord. Boom. Exhaust this card when any ranger suffers damage to reduce it by 3.
That's good. I'm actually surprised that his
I am too.
Zord is defensive.
I'm very surprised.
Like if we'd done a little exercise where it's like look at the Zord and predict what the ranger's going to do,
Yeah.
I would have predicted a much more defensive ranger. So
Yeah.
that's different. I was not expecting that at all.
I'm on that page, but I would love to have this Zord out.
Yeah, the Ram.
Let's.
You want to do all the HyperForce before we get to the crazy ones?
Yeah.
So let's hit the Hyper Red.
All right, HyperForce
What's
Red.
Hyper Red's name?
Marvin.
Oh, Marvin.
Marvin coming in here. Determination. Once per battle, you may either discard 1 card or gain to gain 1 energy, or spend 1 energy to draw 1 card.
That's pretty good.
So a good little even out.
Yeah.
And
so
gaining energy is so good.
Either energy for
Really
card or
relevant.
card for energy, and that's once per battle.
Yes, really relevant. Once per battle. Gaining energy during battles is really important because if you run out, it's awful. It's not good.
That's how you fund everything.
It's not what you want. Has a Blade Blaster because Power Rangers, and then has Impetus Claws.
Power Rangers.
Impetus Claws.
Those are cool. What's his
3 cost
Zord?
attack.
Is it the lion?
Yeah, it's the lion. We'll get there in just a second. 3 cost attack, only 3 dice, so it better be cool. After you resolve this attack, you may perform a second attack with 2 dice. Then you may perform a third attack with 1 die.
That's pretty cool. So it's technically a 6-die attack.
That's incredible.
But it's a 6-die attack you can divide the dice on.
Yes.
Right?
Now, keep an eye on cards that say for that, that Power Ranger's next attacks or something like that. Like that would get really good for this kind of ability. And I imagine since we saw it with the Blue Ranger, like affecting all of a single instance, no matter how many dice are rolled, we might see that kind of ability that would buff every one of those rolls.
That's really interesting.
We'll see.
By the way, that card's particularly good with the Black Ranger.
Yes.
It's like, oh, I did a bunch of damage to a bunch of different stuff, and then it's like 3, 2, 1. Let's get out of here.
That's so good.
Yeah.
These all work so well together. Then all zeros except for one energy card. So this is a very efficient ranger, one might say. We've got the double slash, 2-die attack. After you resolve this attack, you may discard 1 card from your hand to perform a second attack with 2 dice, targeting a different enemy card. So doing that kind of crowd control that Black Ranger is typically doing, but in a different way.
Yeah.
Multiple attacks.
Yeah, it's a little less like wide. It's doing a little more damage to fewer targets, essentially, but still the ability to target multiple people.
It just feels like claws, Yeah. Let's look at the Impetus Blaster. That's a 2-die attack. Before rolling, you may spend an energy to add 1 die to it.
Simple enough.
Easy enough.
I like it because it's 0 for 2, or you can pay 1 for 3. Very flexible. I like all these zeros.
Then we've got the old Find Weakness, a classically named ability. Maneuver, gain 1 energy. The next time any ranger performs an attack during this battle, add 2 dice or 2 damage to that attack.
Just straight up.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Gain an energy, add 2 die, and then launch an attack that does 3 different die rolls and automatically adds 2 damage. Like that's
what's
really good.
Cool about this ranger to me is that because there's no energy being spent, he actually very much wants to be with someone that needs energy.
Yes.
He's a great partner with anybody that is consuming a lot of energy.
Red Ranger just leading the team, buffing the
leading the
energy,
way,
I'm telling you. And then finally, defensive stance, another 0. It's a reaction, gain an energy, draw a card, then place this card on top of your deck instead of discarding it, and it has 3 shields. You play it, you get an energy, you get a card, and you get an automatic 3 shield on top of your deck. I think that's an incredible card. That's probably one of the best ones. Defensive stance.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
And then finally, Lion Hyper Zord. Exhaust it when any ranger performs an attack to convert all miss results to hit results.
So it's just a guaranteed hit. You need that one.
It's fantastic. For all dice.
You need that, period.
All misses become hits. That's insane.
For the round or for that attack?
For that attack.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
So
good. You
good.
really need something to hit, right? I mean, you hit one of those 5-die attacks with a guaranteed all the hits.
I wonder if you can do that after the attack is rolled.
How does it read?
Exhaust this card when any ranger performs an attack. So maybe win versus after?
I think when you perform an attack, it would have to be that.
Fair enough.
Because it doesn't say turn all blanks, after the attack, essentially. Okay.
All right, last of the HyperForce.
Yep.
Shall we look at
Chloe?
Chloe Ashford got the Phoenix Zord. Oh, it looks so good,
I didn't even know there was a Phoenix Zord.
It looks so good.
But it looks awesome.
We see, this is the sign actually of I think a good game based on an IP. It actually gets me excited to learn more about that IP and to dive in, and that's usually a really good sign that it's not just derivative like, oh yeah, it's Power Rangers, woo, play it.
We've all seen it before.
Let's turn a buck. No, it's actually really tastefully done.
Yeah.
Impulsive, you may spend 1 energy to take the first turn in the battle, even if there's an enemy card with fast in play.
Nice.
So you guarantee that you get to take the first turn by spending an energy. That can be game changing.
What's interesting about that to me is the way they worded it, because like you get the first turn unless there's a fast card.
Mm-hmm.
So that would imply that there are other things that will make you not get the first turn.
Well, it says you can spend 1 to take the first turn in the battle, even if there's, I guess you're right, even if there's an enemy card with fast. Huh.
They may not explore that, but at least they worded it where if there's ever anything else making you not go first, she has a way around that.
Yeah, like if there's a monster ability or something that says
that's kind of her thing, right? If you got around that somehow. Now the Pink Ranger from Mighty Morphin, from what I've seen, and even here, is about agility and speed and
accuracy
and moving around. So I'm curious to see what she does based on that archetype.
Well, she's got a Blade Blaster.
No way.
Yeah, she's got a Blade Blaster, so get ready for that. Let's get the Scythe. Oh,
I wonder if it'll be a perennial. They're always going to do Blade Blasters.
Why are Scythes the coolest weapon?
They just are.
And tell me why you're wrong if you disagree. 2-die attack, double the hits dealt by this attack.
Okay.
That could get nuts because we know Red Ranger can add dice. We know, oh my gosh, this could get insane.
If you get to 3 or 4 dice and all of a sudden you're doing 6 to 8 damage. Yeah.
If I've learned anything about games, it's when there are numbers that are not actually numbers, like doubling, tripling, all, none.
Always.
Those kinds of words are always
free is my favorite.
very relevant.
That's how you know something's gone wrong in design when it says free.
Let's look at the Hyperion bow here. 1 energy attack, 3 dice. Ignore the guard keyword when choosing a target for this attack. So very much like the Pink Ranger from Mighty Morphin.
That's great.
Good little accurate attack. Seems like the bows are very accurate, which does make sense. We get 2 copies of Accelerate, a 1 energy attack. Maneuver. Ranger of your choice may immediately play 1 card. If it's an attack, add 1 die to it. Great.
Even herself.
Even herself. Even herself.
So she kind of works with that card.
She can accelerate herself. Yeah. That's really good. If it's an attack, add 1 die to it. That's awesome. Well done. Then we've got Swift Strike. One of my favorite little symbols here is the ability to attack with a die and immediately add a hit right off the bat.
Oh, that's nice.
So that's nice, Swift Strike. After you resolve this attack, if the target had the fast keyword, gain 1 energy. So you go first, and then you can immediately clear out that first fast enemy with a Swift Strike.
And if you do, you get a bonus.
I think the story here is that Chloe is faster than anything the enemies can figure out, which is just awesome. And finally, Zach, a Hurricane Kick. 0 energy attack for only 1 die. What's going on with that?
It's pretty low.
Double the hits from this attack to the target and another enemy card adjacent to the target.
That's pretty wild. So
that's incredibly
really
good.
What you do with this is you or someone else plays the +1 die card.
Yeah.
And then you're rolling this. If you can get 1 of the doubles, it's 1 and 6, so on 2 dice, it's not awful to get that. All of a sudden, you're potentially doing 6 damage on a 0-die attack.
And it goes to 2,
or a 0 energy attack.
It's awesome. I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
all right.
That's pretty cool. What's her Phoenix do? Let's get a full recap of her.
Let's look at the Phoenix. Okay. Did I say double? This just says deal the hits from this attack to the target and another enemy card adjacent.
Oh, got it. I thought you said double and do that, and I was like, that's
I did
just
say that.
insanity.
And that was, now it seems less good because we
incorrect.
thought it was so much better up front.
Yeah,
That's on me.
It's still not bad, right?
That's
Like,
on
if you can
me.
add a die to it, doing 2 dice of damage to 2 characters for 0.
It's a hurricane kick, man.
Yeah. It's a hurricane
It is what it is.
You said it, man.
The Hyperzord for HyperForce Pink here, the Phoenix, exhaust it to allow a ranger of your choice to choose a card from their discard pile and return it to their hand. So it's pretty amazing how the Zords sometimes are shifting around some of the abilities and expectations to kind of round out various things so that if you're pink, you don't just have to worry about one thing, but now it's like, well, I also have some utility here that I get to play with.
And, you know, it's the Phoenix thing. You're bringing a card back.
Rise from the
makes a lot of
ashes.
sense,
Yeah.
But that's a really powerful ability because it goes straight back to hand, right?
Yes.
So you could play a very important card and you could immediately come back and play it again.
It's actually really, that's better than I thought it was. Yeah, return to their hand. That's really
How do you
good.
feel about the HyperForce as a group here?
So that's all HyperForce. I mean, that's, to me, I would just pick the ranger I want to play. I'm not even really thinking in terms of the team that I want to bring. I think the game is designed in a way that I never felt that I had to worry too much about what anyone else is bringing. Everyone has some level of synergy that you bring what you want to play to the table, and you always feel like you're contributing and you're synergizing with other rangers. It's like it's hard not to synergize, right?
I feel like the least synergistic thing you could do, which would also be the least cinematic
Check out that
thing
scythe,
you could
too.
do. Yeah, it's crazy.
Little underhand scythe.
Is bringing a lot of rangers of the same color.
Oh yeah, can
So-
you even do that?
I don't think you can.
I guess
It's
you
pick
technically
your ranger
could.
at the start of the turn. But that's where, like, I do feel like that they're finding ways. So, like, the Blue Ranger and the Blue Ranger have a lot of similarity, but
Mhm.
also act very differently across the board, right? So that's where, like, I think as long as you're maintaining those boundaries, it doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah,
Um,
I like that's a cool idea. Like a 5 Blue
yeah, it's
Ranger
all-
team.
all
That's
blue.
pretty cool.
It's all blue up in here.
All right, well, let's look at the 2 kind of exceptions to the rule here in Shattered Grid. Some would call them kind of bonuses. We have Super Samurai Red. Doesn't get a lot cooler than
Or
that
Lauren
helmet,
Shiva.
to be honest with you. So Lauren is here with True Focus. At the end of each battle, add 1 energy to your personal storage if you do not have 1 already. So it's a way to always make sure that you have 1 energy going into any battle. And we know that that is very relevant.
So I used her in our video with Shattered Grid, and that ability to keep getting energy was very, very helpful.
All right, so what would we do with that 1 energy? Let's look at it. First of all, let's look at your big attack. Is that black box probably? No, you don't really have a big attack.
No, doesn't exist.
It's because this is like samurai style now.
Also, look at the lack of Blade Blasters.
There's no blade blasters in
Because they don't
Super
have
Samurai.
guns.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They just have the swords.
Okay, well, let's get started with the one-ofs. We've got a spin sword for 1 energy here. It's a 3 dice attack. Before rolling, you may spend any amount of energy to add that many dice to this attack.
That is exactly what you spend that energy on.
Exactly right.
I think I had one where I did a 5 or a 6 die attack. Super good.
Thanks for using our energy.
You're welcome. We did it.
Then we also have a black box maneuver. You may immediately play another card. If it's an attack, double the hits dealt by that attack. I remember you used that tremendously. So like black box into something like a, what was this? Spin sword where you just basically use
5
all
dice,
of your energy.
Double the damage. Here we go.
Nuts.
Yeah.
Can get really good. Then we got the 1 cost burnout. We get 2 copies of this beautiful art, and it's worth mentioning the art on all of these cards is so phenomenal. I think that's why we were excited about the game up front. Is again, it's actually done in a very tasteful way. 1 cost burnout, 3 dice. After rolling, you may choose 1 die from this attack and deal its damage to an enemy card adjacent to the target instead. So it's not an addition, but it's instead.
Yeah.
So generally, you're looking at maybe 2 damage over to a neighbor, which can be
by the
really
way,
good.
if you double the damage on that one, all the damage dealt from it is doubled, right? So
You're
you
speaking like a guy who played this in game.
Yes, indeed.
Let's look at a 0 cost strafe burst. It's a 2 die attack, and it says for each blank rolled during this attack, deal 1 hit to an enemy card adjacent to your target. So really a no-lose situation there,
Sure.
if you ask me.
Yeah, and so you start seeing here with red as well, the ability to hit something and hit its neighbor. And that's why I think when you pair it with really either black or yellow, when they have a lot of ways to deal damage to those side enemies, you can start clearing enemies out very quickly.
A good strafe burst, it makes a lot of sense. And again, just beautiful art.
I think all that's from the comics, right?
Yeah, it must be. And then finally, we have Discipline, a 0 cost reaction. When any ranger performs an attack, play it to allow the ranger to reroll any number of dice. These cards in this game mean everything.
So good.
Everything.
Yeah, you can imagine too, like paired with even just the Red Ranger's cards here, where you're dealing damage to the neighbor with one of your dice, or you're dealing double the damage. When you really need it to hit, you just need it to hit.
You need it to hit.
Makes that work. And then you
It's
have
a
the
good pitch.
Bullzord.
And you got the Bullzord. Okay, let's go here. Exhaust it when any ranger plays a card to reduce that card's energy cost by 1. If it's an attack, add 1 die to that attack. That can be a tremendously helpful Zord. Tremendously helpful.
-1 energy, right?
Yep.
And +1 die.
And +1 die.
Incredible. We got that pretty early in our game, and it was nice.
And we've seen some attacks that if they're at +1 die and you're doubling it, or if you're doing it to adjacent things as well, then it gets extremely powerful.
I will say, so far, Lauren is my favorite Ranger. I didn't even know she existed until this game.
Well, don't say that yet, because Jen Scott's is coming to town. So this is Time Force Pink, a beautiful piece of art on this card. I cannot speak.
Have you seen the size of her gun on this model, by the way? I just saw that for the first time.
Check this out.
That's a large gun.
It's a big gun.
Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to totally distract you. But
Yeah,
that
sorry.
art is great.
Models are good. Contingency. At the start of each battle, you may choose 2 enemy cards of the same type, so all foot soldiers, or it looks like, I think that's a monsters, or even the baddie. The bosses. Swap the positions of those cards in the combat sequence.
Yep.
That's fantastic, Zach. that can, I gotta tell you, it's at the start of each battle, so it's before fast resolves, and it can make all of the difference. How many times are we like, man, that first card is terrible, and that third card is not a big deal, right?
Yeah, swapping them is great. And this is the whole Time Force thing, right?
Yep.
I think they're messing with the time is an element, which is changing the order of these events. Someone asked a question really quick. Eduardo says the reroll can be applied for yourself. So the way the card read is said choose a ranger. It didn't say choose another ranger. So anytime it doesn't say another or some verbiage to indicate, you can use it on any ranger, including yourself.
That's certainly our assumption.
Yeah, that's assumption from like 20 years of playing games where that's the case. So it may be totally wrong. But just the way it reads, it says choose a ranger.
Because
some
say another ranger.
100%.
So V5 Blaster, let's start it off here.
Speak of the blaster.
3 cost, again, the art continues to get better. 4 die attack. Before rolling, add 1 die to this attack for each energy remaining in the shared pool. That's, Zach, that's so good.
Okay, so you spin 3.
Add 1 die for each energy remaining in the shared pool.
Okay, so if you have a way, which I'm going to assume she does, you spend your own, but there's also cards that gain energy, right?
Think about the old Bullzord here, -1 energy, so it's only 2 energy to play the blaster. Now you've got maybe a couple energy in the shared pool.
My assumption is she's going to have ways of gaining energy in their stack as well.
Well, let's find out, shall we?
I think I see one that's pretty
Let's also look at this Chrono Blaster, a very cool, just very cool blaster here. 3 damage, straight up attack. 2 energy does 3 damage straight up. You may divide it among any number of targets.
So
Beautiful.
That's almost
no rolling.
Like a Blade Blaster.
Yeah, it's a Chrono Blaster.
Discount. Does it say Chronos Blaster?
Yeah.
That makes sense, right?
You trade blades for time.
And you guarantee how much damage you're going to do. Well, the other one's guaranteed, but you can pay 2 for 1. If you have a reduction going on, it's even better. So that's a really good little card.
I like that card a lot. Covering Fire, let's look at it. 1 energy. Reaction. Play this card when another ranger plays a maneuver. Roll 2 dice and deal that much damage to an enemy card of your choice. I love synergistic cards like this.
That's so good because you don't have to spend your action on it.
Right.
So the way the battle works or the combat works is rangers go, villains go, rangers go back and forth. So the ability for me to play something, you react to that, and also do damage is super incredible.
It's real good.
Again, manipulating time. Like, think about the theme here and the design. I think that's really, really smart and clever.
Jonathan, it's a very good job that you've done.
That's great, right? Like, they're just manipulating the sequencing of things, which I think is just so good.
It's tastefully done, too. It's all very contained and nice, which is the kind of stuff that I really get into.
Yeah.
1 cost Chrono Saber, Time Sword, some might say. 3 die attack. If it defeats the target, gain 2 energy.
That's what I'm talking about, right?
So that's pretty relevant.
Yeah.
Right? Keep your energy stores full by killing. That's exactly what we're looking for when it comes to synergy. Let's look at Overclock. I have a feeling this might have to do with energy as well. 2 die attack, discard another card from your hand, then gain 1 energy for each shield on that card.
What?
Yep.
What?
Discard a 3 shield, gain 3 energy, just like that.
That's amazing. So her what was the blaster? Is the big thing? Is that
The
what it is?
V5 blaster, yeah.
That could be craziness.
Yeah.
It's like, 7 dice, here we go.
Yeah, and you swap things in the battle line. So basically, you're going to put the big threat up front, and then you're going to ace it, and then buy yourself a turn.
Or
vice versa.
Later,
yeah.
And then you give yourself time to gain energy to really nuke it.
Then finally, we have the 0-cost Warp Vector, a 2-die attack. Choose one card from your discard pile, place it on top of your deck. So another kind of just
that's the 3 shield card, right?
Leveling it out card, yeah.
That's really good.
What's her? She's got in that V5 Blaster's a 3 shield too. So
3 shields, that's pretty good.
Paying attention to the shields matters too, which I haven't been doing.
Yeah, there's a lot of elements. It's just enough, right? It's not complex, but there's enough elements on each card that give every ranger a very unique feel. So what's the Zord do?
Somebody once said about me that I was complex but not complicated, and I thought that was the greatest.
That's
the greatest thing ever.
That should be your Twitter bio.
Yeah, there you go.
That's definitely where that goes.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Complex,
not complicated.
Yeah, man. But it makes me sound like such a... Time Flyer 5.
Yes, it does. That's why it's your Twitter bio.
Time Force Pink. Exhaust this card to allow a ranger of your choice to play a card in a battle taking place in another location as though they were in that location. Remember, we did this a lot.
We did do this one.
So you exhaust it, allow a ranger to play a card in a battle in another location. So that can be extremely relevant because a lot of times you just can't get everywhere you need to be.
And also, if you have a ranger that's maybe a little less healthy, doesn't want to be in the fight, and not having to waste the move to get there, that ability just to walk in, drop a very important card into the battle, and then zoom out.
Or that like surprise, hey, I'm going to block 2 damage and allow you to get some cards back into your deck. Those kinds of things can have a huge impact.
Super good.
All right, Zach, I'm going to go, because we've got a new little switcher over there, I'm going to go change this to the full screen shot. So keep the people excited, would you?
I'm going to keep them engaged. Do you want to show anything off before we have our non-showy camera?
We can always show it to the big one.
Okay.
I just kind of want to press the button over here. It seems pretty
See how it works. If you missed the first stream, we're testing out some new stream gear, which is we're going to experience some stuff here, so it'll be exciting. There'll be angles disappearing, and if you're it's in the same time, but I had to leave for a couple of minutes. Don't know if we answered it. As far as I know, you can play with up to 5 players in the official rules. But even on the video we posted, I think it was the video that went up today, we kind of made a house rule where when I got defeated, I put in a ranger of a different type. Like I chose a different ranger. I don't know if that was on. I think it was on that first video. The reason I say that is that I'm personally, right, the Mighty Morphin Rangers is what I grew up on. There's 5 of those, plus then Tommy joins as green and then white. So like I'm looking to play a 6-player game with all 6 Rangers, and then if Tommy's defeated, he gets actually put back into play as the White Ranger. That's
nice.
And that's just how I'm going to play. That's like my dream state, right?
That makes sense.
And there may not be rules for that, but the cool part of this game is like, it's not a tournament, it's not an event, so you can kind of play it how you want to play it and have fun with it. So I presume there will be some kind of support for 6 players in that exact scenario, or maybe you have 7 people and you just want to play a game together.
It seems like you could really house rule it in a lot of cool ways too.
Yeah, and now that we've seen more foot soldiers and bosses and monsters and stuff, it's like I think you could make the deployment deck bigger, right? I think you could randomize it more. I think you could add in extra bosses, and so like you can kind of shape this, and that's kind of the thing that I was alluding to earlier. Is like now that we started to see the expansions coming, I think what's possible with this game is actually a lot wider than I first gave it credit for.
Yeah, we didn't do the Megazord.
We didn't.
Let's do it. Here's the CHRONOS HyperForce Megazord. I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to show it to the big camera there. At the start of each battle, each participating ranger may search their deck or discard power for a card, add it to their hand, and then shuffle their deck.
Wow.
So that's pretty tremendously good.
He's zooming in here.
Oh, no. I don't have my focus on.
Not going to happen.
Look at this, though. Look at this. It's a sweet Megazord.
Yeah, that's funny. I think it's also dark past the light. Asking about to some of the HyperForce Megazords. So something happened on Facebook. We disappeared. Okay, we're back. So from what I read in the rules, right, essentially each ranger comes with a Zord that goes in the deck, and then you're putting in Zords for the other colors to basically balance it out, depending on the number of players you have. Just thematically speaking, if you're all playing HyperForce, then you could put in all the HyperForce Zords. But the Mega Zord that comes out, whatever form it's taking, is random unless, again, thematically, if you're playing Almighty Morphin, you're going to have the Dino Zord. But like I said earlier, like you can kind of do what you want, right? Whatever makes the most sense to you. So my goal and my favorite way to play, I think, is going to be thematically. All the Rangers from the same timeline, whenever that is.
I'm the exact
you
opposite.
You have the Zords coming in. But the other thing is, that's just going to be my like initial thing I want to explore.
Yeah.
But then I'm also perfectly happy with the other alternative, which is like 3 to 5 players. We each choose the Ranger that we're most excited about from whatever timeline we're most excited about. And the Zords are just crazy, and you don't know which ones you're going to get, because I think the variability is what's going to make it the most interesting and make each time you play kind of a different, unique experience.
I think
shuffling up the character cards, and then it's like, here's yours, here's yours, here's yours, here's yours. And then you just have to adapt on the spot, right?
Roll good.
That's also another variant there, because the variant we talked about in the video comes out.
I like that.
And it's just like pins and the old live stream gear.
I don't know. It's especially strange because it's like as soon as that effect stopped, it's like it really loves this shot. Maybe it's because we've got so much. Let's do it like this. See if that matters. It really loves that picture in picture.
Oh, now we're back.
Yeah,
looks like we're back.
So look, so we go picture in picture.
And it loves it?
And everybody's pretty happy.
All right, well, we still got the thing on there, so we can slide these over there.
And it goes a little weird. I wonder if it's because we're putting the big shot in the... Look at us dance like I can dance you around on the screen.
Yeah, I know. I see me cruising around here.
Well, it likes this for whatever reason, Zach.
I'm into it. I'm just flying around. This is great. If you're still watching, I appreciate it.
Like, we'll put the Rangers around here.
You just put all these over there.
Yeah. There's some Morphin tokens.
Wow. So if you haven't seen it yet and you're still watching this video, I presume you're interested. We have these up for pre-order, the Morphin tokens. These are the pretty close to final prototype. I'm a huge fan of those limited edition, the colored ones. You see the red, energy, and the blue. And those are going to anybody that pre-orders. Do you have the camera in the middle here? That's great.
Yeah, that's what we got.
Anyone that pre-orders the Morphin tokens, in the next several weeks, we're going to be shipping the tokens with the official launch of the game in August. You'll get those tokens particularly. We also have the subscriptions. We had a lot of people asking questions because it's just a new thing for, I think, anyone that plays board games. We've been doing subscriptions forever, pretty much. Not really. It's been since like 2011, 2012.
It's a long time.
But you can just sign up, and it's free. You can cancel anytime, but a week or two before any expansion comes out that isn't coming out on launch, so the launch stuff is excluded, you'll get charged. It's 25% off MSRP plus shipping. Automatically show up to your house or wherever you want to have it sent, technically.
It will even ship to apartments.
It will, or an office.
And then the key thing too, I think, is if you're wanting to get started with a game, we got that bundle.
Yep.
So the bundle of all the box products, you can find that on the teamcommand.com store, and it's for 25% off, as low as anybody else that's around that's selling it. So that's really what it's about. And I think that's it. So Shattered Grid, we've got 7 new Rangers. We'll leave this video up and we'll post it everywhere. So if you want to come back and revisit it after the fact,
video.
Yeah, you can go see all of the Rangers, and I imagine some people might screenshot them and share them in various groups. So thanks everybody so much for watching. We were surprised, I think, at how much we really enjoyed this game. It started as a curiosity as kind of Rangers fans.
You gotta check it out. I mean, I
fans of Renegade, honestly.
I saw
think they do good work.
I've been following Renegade since, I think it was Lotus, the game that came out way back. We did that video at Gen Con. And then I saw the models at Gamma, and I was very impressed. So anytime miniatures, pre-assembled, cooperative, a theme that we enjoyed, it was like, we have to at least scope it out. And then we got it, and it was...
This is really good.
Far exceeded expectations.
This is really good.
For sure.
All right, so check it out. Anything you need is on teamcommand.com, and we'll have more content coming for you guys. Check out that YouTube video, too.
If you have any questions, leave us a comment on the YouTube video or hit us up on Facebook or Twitter. We'd be happy to answer them.
All right, let's get out of here, shall we?
Yep.
Thank you, guys.